In this video, I aim to show you how to do a complete and full setup, so this is not going to be a brief video. I do ask for your patience and ask for you to bear with me as we get started. So at this point, I'm going to make the assumption that you know how to install software and that you've already installed Oracle VM VirtualBox. And at this point, what we need to do is to do a little bit of prep work and setup. So if you come under here to File and Preferences, I've gone ahead and I've created some special destinations inside of my personal computer. And on the D drive, I've created a folder called VMs. And this is where all of my virtual machines are going to go and live. This is not a default setup. So again, how I got here is when you first install it, just go up to File and Preferences and do a little organizational work. Okay, it'll help save you to know where things are and also make it a little bit more easier to get to. If you don't want to do this, that's absolutely fine. Then just go ahead and follow along from this point forward. So I'll also assume that you downloaded the ISO or CD-ROM image to install Debian. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is come back up here to File, and I'm going to come in here to where it says Virtual Media Manager, which is Control D. Another way of getting to it is this bullet point list over here. You click on it and you can get to Media here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a optical disk. So be careful, because you may do what I just almost did. All of the actions are at the top, but the focus of the actions are down here in these tabs. So this takes action on floppy disks, optical disks, and hard disks. So go ahead and choose optical disks, and what we want to do is create or add one. And I keep my ISOs in the default area. So inside of here is where my Debian ISO is rather. And at this point, what'll happen is when I go ahead and I add this to the list, now this is available for me to assign to a drive on a virtual machine. That'll make sense if it doesn't already in just a few moments. So I'm going to switch back over here to the Welcome area, because this is where we manage and create virtual machines. This area manages and creates media. So we want to now go to the Welcome area, which is the lifeblood of the app, which is where we're going to go ahead and create a virtual machine. We're going to go ahead and choose New. And at this point, we're going to do Deb 10 for the name, not Deb 120, Deb 10. And at this point, it is a Linux. It is a Debian 64-bit system. And the VM is going to go into the VM folder. And at this point, I'm going to create a 2 GB system. So this is 1 GB of RAM. I'm going to add 2 GB, essentially doubling the number to 2048. And if my fingers would type and do as I say, then this video will go a lot easier. All right, anyway, with that being said, now just choose the default here, create. Choose the default here again, create. And you do want to dynamically allocate it versus fixed. What this does is you specify essentially a ceiling on how big the disk should get, but if you choose dynamically allocated, it will build the size of the disk in real time up to the ceiling. If you do fixed disk or fixed size, which is a fixed disk, what will happen is that it will reserve that space immediately and eat up a bunch of unnecessary hard disk space. So I always just set the ceiling and choose dynamic. At this point, I only technically need about 10 to 20 gigs, so I'm going to put 20 gigabytes of disk space here, and you can see that it automatically puts it into its own folder, again on the D drive. If you didn't make the changes, it'll put it in its default location, which is where it goes when you install it. All right, and so at this point, I now have a basic machine. So I am going to show you 2 changes now that you should make, but keep in mind in reality, and this is if you're really OCD or anal like I am, where you just don't want any errors going on, and you want a perfect or clean install, you really should have 3. I'll show you 2, and again, I'll circle back to the third one. So the first setting that you want to do is first you want to click the machine and you want to click on Settings. That'll get you into the settings window. And the first thing that you want to do is go to network. You want to change this from network address translation, which is what NAT stands for. And I'm not going to get into it here because it has to do with networking, but let's just use bridged. And without going into a long-winded explanation on networking, bridged essentially will just make the machine as if it's part of your generalized network. If we do NAT, then it gets built into the special and isolated area where VMs are, and I don't want that to happen. I just want another machine on my network so that we can make this accessible to the internet. So the easiest and quickest way to do this is just choose bridged. All right, so with that being said, I've got that set, and I'm going to go into here and choose this IDE controller under storage. Remember earlier when I was in the media manager, I said this will make a little bit more sense? Well, now that I've created the media, all I have to do is choose or create a virtual optical disk. And because we've already created it, all I have to do is select it. Now, I could have gone ahead and added it here as a shortcut, and you may want to do that too. But I do want to give you a little bit of understanding on Virtual Box Manager by Oracle and how to do different things. So 2 ways of getting to the same place. Anyway, we're going to choose the Debian installer. And at this point, we're going to choose OK. All right, now before I close this window, I'm going to show you the third option, and it's under Display. And I'm going to leave this as default because, as you notice, this is a Debian Linux 64-bit system, and I really wish VirtualBox would make the change because this VM SVGA controller is bad. It really should be VBox SVGA, and I'm going to leave it at the default because I want to show you the error message. I want to show you how to troubleshoot the error message, and then I want you to Google it and learn how to Google it based on the error message, which will basically tell you that the graphics controller is bad, and that's the reason for the error. But in any event, this is the third change. The third and final change needs to be VBox SVGA. Okay, again, going to leave it like this to show you what happens. All right, so with this being said, my changes are made. Now all I need to do, sorry about that. With the changes now being made, all I need to do is to adjust, is to start the virtual machine. Sorry about that, got distracted with my notification on my phone here. And so with this being said, it pulled up in my other screen, and I have select a startup disk, and so it's the only one I have, so I'll just go ahead and choose start. Now I do have another screen off window, but I can't drag it over right now because it's stuck. Alright, so now that that's done, I've got it here. I'm going to go ahead and close this down. Let's rearrange some windows, and I'm going to choose the graphical installer. So we'll do this. Yep, capture. Alright, and arrow up, arrow down, choose graphical installer. Okay, that should let my mouse work or start to work. Well, try this again, get it up here. Okay, good, that seems to be working. Yep. All right, and so at this point we're going to whip through this as fast as we can. I will only discuss changes when it's necessary. Otherwise, I'm just going to click the default and just go with it and not explain why. Okay, so English, United States, American English, hang out and wait. It's detecting the CD-ROM. I'm going to pause. Okay, I've unpaused, and now it's detecting the hard network. Anyway, I'm going to pause intermittently so you're not watching paint dry, because again, this video is going to be really long. I'm going to pause one more time. Okay, now I'm being asked to choose a host name. All of that screen just did dip dip dip, did its thing, and then it landed here. So there wasn't anything that you missed other than just a bunch of automation. Okay, so with that being said, I now need to give it a host name. I'm going to choose Web01 for my host name. And that being said, let's choose continue. The domain name is going to be, for me, it's going to be @homehosting.com. And choose continue. Now you'll replace this with your domain name, and you can call the host name whatever you want. I just chose Web01. And with this being said, I now need to choose a password. I'm just going to use the insecure password of demo for the root account, because this is a demo, and choose continue. And now I'm going to create a user, not a root user, just a regular user, and I'm going to call him demo, and I'm going to call the account demo, and I'm going to use the password of demo. Again, really secure. Hit enter or continue, and now it's doing its thing, and I'm going to pause one more time. All right, so we're going to unpause again here, and now it's just talking about the clock, so we'll just choose continue. You'll need to pick whatever is in your region, and so right now it's going to go ahead and pick up on the disks that I have here, and at this point I'm just going to use the entire disk in guided. All right, so at this point I only have one disk provisioned, which is fine. Continue. And at this point, I'm just going to choose all files in one partition, recommended for new users. And I'll go ahead and choose continue. And at this point, I'm going to finish partitioning and change and write all the changes to the disk. And at this point, I do need to carefully read this here, because if I don't, I'm going to go into what's called an infinite loop and just continue to go through the installer, and it's not going to help. The message needs to be changed to yes to write the changes and continue. Otherwise, it's going to take you through what you just went through again and again and again. All right, so with that being said, this is going to take a few minutes. I'm going to pause again. And at this point, that's finished up. I land on this screen, and all I have to do is go with the defaults. I don't want to scan any other disks. Choose the United States. You'll need to choose whatever's appropriate for you and choose continue. For me, the default and the suggestion is Debian or deb.debian.org. I'm going to choose that. Continue. I just hit continue on the proxy, and now it's going ahead and configuring the apt manager and a bunch of other packet management software. And I did a brief pause again, and I landed on this screen, and this is about the popularity contest. It's essentially a survey, and I'm just going to go ahead and choose no. And with that being said, I now land to this screen, and because we are going to be creating a web server and a Virtualmin installation, which essentially is going to manage the server, we don't want a desktop environment, because if you go to Amazon or you go to Linode or you go to any of the other operating vendors out there, you're not going to get a desktop environment. So you need to really be comfortable with SSH and command line, and obviously you're going to need the standard system utilities. And so the web server is unnecessary, and the rest of this is just, part of the desktop environment. So in any event, these are the two options that you want. Go ahead and choose continue. And I'm going to pause once again. Okay, so now we are back again here, and now it's asking about the Grub Bootloader, which is something that you're going to need to put on here to tell it where your where your operating system is and where you're going to boot from. And so the default is yes, so just choose continue. Now here you need to read carefully, because you're only going to have one choice if you followed along to this point, and you do need to select it. Unfortunately, the manual device, it seems nonsensical to choose it if there's only one, but in any event, the installer forces you to pick the only item that you have to choose from, and then click continue. And that being said, this will go ahead and load, and I'll pause one more time. And at this point, the installation is done, and for all intents and purposes, we're going to go ahead and click continue, and it's going to reboot the system. And the message is going to flash on the screen up here. In just a moment, you'll see an error, 2 lines. It'll show up as an error, and this is a result of that video. And it showed up right there. There are the errors. I don't know if you saw that. It said failed. And you went in there and see it. So let's log in and let's take a closer look at that. Okay, so to log in and look at these errors, what we're going to do is we're going to do journal ctl -b, and then we're going to pipe this over to basically it's another application, and we're going to search for some text. And the app is called Grub, and what we want to look for is asterisk error. And we don't see that. Let's just run the whole thing. Let's hit the end on the keyboard, and if we scroll up, we should see the errors in red, and there they are. Okay, so it's case sensitive. I needed to look for error in caps. So just to show you how this works. That way you don't have to do the whole thing. Here we go. We'll just arrow up a couple times. All right, so That's what I meant to find. So these are the two lines that we saw on the screen at boot time. And the fix for this is to come over to here into the settings and change the display again from this to VBox. I can't do it right now because the machine's running. So I'm going to do shutdown. Whoop, it helps if I have focus. So choose shutdown now. Come over to here. Okay, so it is shut down. So in the display, I'm going to change this to VBox. SVGA. Choose OK. And by the way, guys, these are modes. So in here you can see the details of the machine. This is the summary. And here you can take snapshots of the disk. As a matter of fact, let's take one right now. We'll do the first snapshot. Okay, and what'll happen is if we screw something up from this point forward, we can revert right back to this particular point in time. Snapshots are your best friend. So go ahead and use them as much as you can. All right, so with that snapshot being taken and the changes being made, we should be able to start this guy up again. And here it comes. And here is the selector for the grub. Let's go. And no errors, and we should get login. Here's the blocks, and there is our login. Okay, excellent. We've got that all set to go, ready to go. All right, so root and demo. We are in. Clear. Oh, so just to show you this again, if we now journal control -B grep error with the proper case, we don't get anything. Well, we didn't get any errors earlier, but in any event, if you get errors at boot time, just remember that journal control -B for the boot log, and that will get you what you're looking for. And if you know that you're looking for a specific type of text in the error log, then you can go ahead and throw that over to grep and search through that and only get what you need and not have to sort through the whole thing. All right, so now that this is all said and done, what we need to do is some preparatory work and cleanup work. And to do that, what we need to do is to assign it a static IP because we're going to install Virtualmin, and it needs to have a static IP, not a DHCP IP. All right, so hopefully that makes sense to you. If not, just know this is something that you need to do, and we'll go ahead and do that. Now, I happen to know automatically that the IP address of 192.168.254.40 is the IP address that I am going to assign statically. Now, if I look at the IP address that I have assigned now, which is a DHCP address, I can see, and I can't show you this while I'm recording, I'll have to do it in post, but if you look to the bottom where the flashing cursor is, if you go about 4 lines up, you'll see it starts with inet and then 192.168.254.63/CIDR24. CIDR is classless internet domain routing. It's essentially a way of assigning a subnet mask with a /dot notation. In any event, the IP address is DHCP'd, and this is a problem because we want the world to know where our web server is, and if it's a moving target, then we'll never know where it is. So we have to make it stationary, and that means the IP address can't move, because what we're going to have to do is take our DHCP'd IP that we get from our internet service provider, and we're going to use, and we have used, an application called Direct Update and some dynamic DNS. Anyway, that's not the subject for this course. I do have another course about hosting at home on Udemy. You should definitely go ahead and I think it's like $10 or something. It's $29.99, but for the most part you can find it on sale for like $10 or $11. If you need a coupon, just go ahead and reach out to me and I'll get you one. All right, so in any event, what we need to do is assign that static IP. And to clean up the screen, because I hate clutter, we'll go ahead and clean this up. And now what I want to do is run an application like Notepad. In Linux, it's called Nano. And so I'm going to run Nano by just typing in Nano. But I can pass it the file that I want to run Nano. In other words, I can pass it the file that I want to open with Nano so I can edit it. And I happen to know that the file that we want to edit to change the DHCP address to the static IP is going to be located under the etc. slash, let's see, I think it's network. And if you're not sure, you can just type a part of it and hit tab like I just did, and it'll autocomplete. And then from here, I believe it's interfaces. Yep, there we go. So I typed in IN and I hit tab and it resolved. Now, if there's multiple ones, you may have to hit tab twice. But anyway, this is a Linux thing, and this isn't a Linux course, so I'm not going to go through each and every one of those. So you'll just have to type it all out. All right, so Nano, etc., network, interfaces. This is the file that we need to edit. I'm going to hit enter. And lo and behold, now this is the file that we have. Just to let you know, guys, if you screw something up in this file and you want to undo, and you're a Windows person, for example, I want to undo that, it's the Alt key plus U, which is what does the undo, okay? And read the helper text at the bottom. Lots of Linux buffs are probably screaming at me right now saying, why are you using Nano? You should use VI or Vim or whatever, and so that's fine. Nano is nice and quick and easy for what we're doing, and for noobs it's really good because it has that helper text at the bottom of the screen and you're not going to get too stuck or too stuck too fast. Alright, highly important, you need to type in auto. Okay, and now what we need to do is auto the interface. Okay, so the interface is listed right here, which is the ENP0S3. So we'll just type that in again, ENP0S3. Okay, so that's key. If we don't have this in, then bad things are going to happen. We'll have to reboot and things won't automatically start the way that they need to. So just know that this needs to be in there. The next change that we need to do is where this thing says DHCP, we need to get rid of that and type in static. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to drop down to a new line. We're going to tab over and we're going to type in address. This is the static IP address that we're going to assign to this machine, which is 192. I showed you that earlier. 168.254.40. Okay, and so the next item, actually, I'm going to use the CIDR. Okay, slider 24. Okay, so if you didn't use this CIDR, you'd have to type in netmask and 2.55. Come on, 255.255.255.25. Actually, it's going to be .0. Okay, so netmask, this right here, all that typing, you can use the shortcut of -24. Okay, just know that the number below is signified with this /24. It has to do with the number of bits that are turned on and off and all that other stuff. Again, not going to get into all of that into this course. So we're going to use the CIDR, so I won't need to use the netmask. All right, the next thing I need to do is add a network. So the network is basically going to be, where is the network and where does it start at? So it's 192.168.254.1. Okay, so we go from 1 and then we go all the way up to 255 with that /24 CIDR. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. Just type in exactly what I'm telling you to type in here. And on the next one, we want to put in broadcast. And on a Class C, again, if none of this makes sense, don't worry about it. On a Class C network, this broadcast is going to be 192.168.255.255. All right, we're almost done here. We need a gateway, which is, where is my router? Where is my modem? And so that is going to be 192.168. And I do need to preference or disclaim. Let me finish typing here because I can't talk and type at the same time for some reason. The gateway and all of these IP addresses, you're going to have to make sure that, number one, the static IP address that you're assigning is available to you, okay? I said I wasn't going to do this, but I do have to give you at least a little bit of explanation. Alright, so I am going to log into my WinStream router here, and the other thing that I want to highlight is under this advanced setup, and we want to go over here to Lan IP settings. Okay, so this is my Lan IP and my DHCP settings. These are the DHCP. This is the DHCP server that assigns IP addresses to what's on my network. All right, so here I have this opportunity to set the IP address values. Okay, so I'm not assigning anything from 1 all the way up to 50. Now this machine that I'm recording this video on is 50, so I chose 40 for the virtual machine that I'm creating for or in this video. And the top, the very ceiling of what it's going to issue out is 200. So there's roughly about 150, 149 IPs that are going to get assigned to devices on my network, and I don't have 150-ish type of items on my home network. I only have maybe 20 to 40, if that, at best. So I have manually configured this. If you don't have anything like this in your router, then what you want to do is you go into DHCP reservations and pick the number. So I picked, the number that I just showed you in here, which is the 192.168.254.40, and I can make a manual reservation for that. So select an IP address to associate with the MAC address. That's the first thing. I'll need to pick the MAC address of this adapter, and anyway, that I'm going to leave up to you. You'll have to go into VirtualBox and pick that up and figure out what that's going to be, and there's some other things you can do. Anyway, because it's probably not going to be something that everybody needs to do, only a handful of you, very select, most of you will be able to just set a range, okay? And I just suggest giving you a buffer of at least 10 IPs that you can play with, because you only need the one for this video, okay? So anyway, with that being said, knowing that you have a safe and static IP address, whatever this is going to be, set it to that. If your IP address is 192.168.0.1, right, and that's the gateway address, your network is going to be 192.168.0.1. The broadcast is still going to be the same as what I've got here. The IP address is going to change 192.168.0. Whatever, wherever you have that range. The gateway is going to be 192.168.0.1. So in any event, all of this is going to change. All right, so the last and final item that you need is something called Dns Name Servers. And it's pluralized because you can add more than one IP address. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the loopback or local 127.0.0.1. If you're not sure what that is, don't worry about it. Just type it exactly as I have it here. And then go ahead and type in the name of the gateway, which is your router, because it also has a way of looking up information. 192.168.254.254. And I'm going to, for good measure, in case something that goes wrong with my ISP, I'm going to use Google's DNS, which is 8.8.8.8, or you can use the alternative variant of that of 8.4.4. Okay, and there's, I think, even one more. So I'm going to leave these just like they are. I'm going to save the file off. Okay, so make note of all of the changes. Again, what you want to use is address, network, broadcast, gateway, and DNS-name servers, and you make sure you use this auto ENPS 0S3, which should work for you if you're following along, identically to what I've got here. So Control X is going to exit, but when I do, it's going to ask me if I want to save the file. And it says saved. Yes, I do want to save. Hit yes or Y. And then it says, where do you want to save the changes to? Well, because I specified etc. network interfaces, I'm editing the file already, so it filled it in for me. All I do is hit enter. And now my changes are there. I'm back to the command line. I can go ahead and clear this. And if I type in IP adder for IP address, you don't have to type in the whole name, because if I hit tab, these are the options: address or adder label. So if you just do adder, it knows that you're talking about the IP address and it pulls it up. Okay, so you'll see that my IP address doesn't reflect what I just made the change to. In order for you, and you have to understand this about Linux, anytime an application starts, it reads configuration files to know how it's supposed to do what it's supposed to do. So if you make a change to a configuration file, you either have to restart the service so that it can reread the file, or you have to restart the computer so that it can reread whatever configuration change that you made. So either way works. Do whatever's comfortable for you. At this point, you can just reboot the machine and it'll work for you. Otherwise, you can do systemctl restart, and what you want to restart is the networking. Okay, nothing happens, it just goes away, and this is a good thing. That means it should have worked. So if I arrow up twice to get to the previous command, IP address adder, now I should see my 40. And again, 4 lines up from the bottom where the flashing cursor is, it says inet 192.168.254.40. Okay, so this is great. This is doing exactly what I needed to do. Now, for the next remainder of this course, I want to use SSH to log into this server. I don't want to use this console, which is just like me being in front of and physically on the computer. That's what a console is. It belongs to the machine on the machine. Whereas SSH is a remote way of connecting to this virtual machine or instance. And that's how you would connect to most virtual machine and instances in the cloud. At Amazon, at Linode, or wherever else you're using. And so you will never have console level access typically with those guys unless they have a web interface that gives you console level access, and some do. So with that being said, the next thing that we need to do, if you want to log in with the root user and not use sudo, you have to allow and make the changes to allow the root user to use SSH. And just like we used nano, I'm going to arrow up a couple of times where we run nano and we choose something very specifically to edit, we're going to do the same thing for SSH. And I happen to know that it's SSH something, so I'm going to hit tab twice, and you'll see the one that I want is actually SSHD config. It's on the far left of the 3 columns, the second one down. Okay, SSHD underscore config. So if I do SSHD underscore and then hit tab, it finishes it out, and if I hit enter, I get to this file. Real simple change. We need to scroll down to where it says authentication, and that's where this is right here. Okay, what we're looking for is this line right here, perm root log or permit root login. And so the thing to do here is this text that's in blue means that it's a comment. It means nothing is in this configuration is going to take place. As soon as I remove that pound symbol, now all of a sudden I have a command that is going to take place. And I want to remove what's on the tail end and simply just replace this with yes. So I want to permit the root login. Yes, that's essentially what I'm making a configuration. Okay, plain English, not too difficult. And now I just need to get out of the file and hit Command, or Control rather, X. And I hit C. I hit the wrong key. So Control X, and it says Save Modified Buffer. And by the way, a buffer just means whatever you've got in memory, and that's where it stores the live changes. Anyway, tell it yes or Y. And then here's the file that auto-populates. Just hit Enter. Okay, that being said, all's good. Now, if you remember earlier, I have to restart SSH because it has to reread this configuration file change. All right, so to do that, I'm going to do systemctl restart, and we're not doing networking, we're doing SSH. Okay, that looks good. Now, with that being said, I should be able to use Putty, which is my trusty little thing over here. And I'll type in 192.168.254.40, and all of this is going to come off screen maybe. .192.168.254.40. That looks good, but I'm not getting any connectivity. So something is afoot. Let's find out what's going on. So live troubleshooting. So we're going to bring up the DOS command prompt in Windows, and I'm going to ping the IP address, ping 192.168.254.40, and I am getting a response back from the virtual machine, so that's good. Let's ping my machine, the Windows machine, from the Linux virtual machine, and we're going to do ping 192.168.254.50. And I'm getting connectivity there as well. Okay. So I don't know why I wasn't able to connect. 192.168. I may have typed something wrong. I didn't pay attention close enough. 254.40. If you guys are looking at this video and saw me do a typo, you're probably screaming, "You idiot." All right, so apparently I did type something wrong. In any event, go ahead and click yes because it's I've never logged in and it's the key. Demo. Nope, root is the username, passwords demo. Okay, I am in. I'm clearing this up. So now I'm in both places. So I'm going to minimize this. And now we're remoted in. Now the other reason that I did this like this, and you may be asking, why didn't you use the console? The console doesn't let you paste things in from the clipboard. And so for the next video, I'm going to go to Virtualmin. I'm going to go to download and install. And what I want to do is I want to get this command right here. This is going to download this installation script folder, or file rather, okay? So I've got a copy to the clipboard. With my cursor placed in here, I'm going to now right click on the mouse, which will paste it in, and it didn't do as expected. And that happens sometimes because of the way on how you select things. All right, so carefully choosing copy. Try this one more time. Right click. Okay, it worked that time. All right, so with that being said, what's going to happen is it's going to go out to the internet. wget is a simple command that says get something from a URL. And in this case, I specified a file. And it's going to download it, and it's going to put it right into my directory. And it's a very small script file, right? So if I do ls, which is like dir, or directory listing on Windows, ls is going to show me a list of the files. There is my install.sh file. Now to run it, remember how we used Nano when we specified the file that we wanted to use with Nano? Well, this is an installation script. So to run the installer or the installation or the script application, you simply have to put the path of where it exists. That is in the bin folder. And from there we /sh. So that is the application that we want to run. And now what we want to pass into is the install.sh file that is in my directory, the current directory. So I'm just going to tab out, and it didn't work. Okay, I just had to type one more letter. In any event, I'm going to go ahead and click enter. And again, the reason for using Putty to do the SSH is so that we can paste stuff in so that we don't have to type all of that in there. And also, there may be other reasons as you move forward to where this makes sense. All right, so the installer says this is only going to work on certain key important operating systems that they support. And they're basically what they refer to, I think, as primary. In any event, the first one that's up there is CentOS Red Hat Linux. Because of the CentOS / Red Hat IBM debacle that's going on right now, where basically they're killing off support as it used to be, I wouldn't suggest doing anything other than Debian right now, or Ubuntu if that's a flavor that you're familiar with. But in any event, for following along with this video, we're using Debian 9, and I use it in production servers as well and haven't had a problem, so I do like it. In any event, it says everything's fine, nothing failed. Do I want to continue? Yes or no? Yes, I want to continue, so Y, and then hit enter. And at this point, it's going to be like watching paint dry, so I am going to pause the video after a quick explanation. There are 3 separate phases. As you can see, we just went into phase 2. The first phase is essentially looking and making sure that it can download everything that it needs. It's setting up different things in repositories so that you can get it for the Webmin. And if you're not familiar with Linux, a repository is like an Apple App Store or the Google Play for Android. It's a way of going and getting applications for the operating system or for the device. And in Linux, they use repos or repositories. And when we did the installer of Debian, we told it deb.debian.org as the central repository, so we only set up the one. And this is setting up something else. So the nice thing about Linux is you can point it to multiple stores, essentially. And a store just holds a bunch of software. So most things are in the general default repository, and for those that aren't, all you have to do is add the repo to, your Linux installation or flavor, and you'll be able to get the application for the first time as well as subsequent updates when you use the apt get apt update, the apt environment in Debian. In CentOS, it's yum. And of course, there's changes to a lot of that all the time. So in any event, I'm not going to rattle on much longer. I'm going to pause so this goes away. This phase 2 is probably the longest, but it'll finish phase 2 and then it goes through like 29 separate configuration installations in phase 3, and it takes about anywhere from 3 to 15 minutes depending on the speed of your machine. If you got a really slow machine, it might even take up to a half hour. So just let it do its thing. If it gets an error, it'll tell you, but for the most part it should run and be good as long as you've done everything that you've seen here. You may have an unusual network card or some configuration anomaly on your machine that could cause a problem, but for the most part, I can't help you troubleshoot that because it's your machine and your environment, but for the most part, it should work for the majority of you with a handful of very few exceptions. Okay, we're going to pause and we'll come back in just a few minutes. Okay guys, we now have a full and complete installation. I'm going to try to scroll up a little bit here, and maybe I can make this window a little bit bigger. Okay, so as you can see, you've got phase 1 of 3, 2 of 3, and then you have the final phase 3 of 3, and there's 23 processes that need to fire off, where it's configuring each of the services that is part of Virtualmin and Webmin. And at this point, it's giving you information saying that the website is now up and running and available, and that I should be able to go to https web01@hosting.com/ this port number of 10,000. So I don't have any ports open for this right now, and I'm going to have to fix that. So to fix that, let's go over to the router. And for my firewall or my router, I need to be logged in. So let's go ahead and do that. And click on firewall again and click on port forwarding, and let's go down to the bottom. All right, so I do have port 80 and 443 going to my main machine, because on the main machine I have another course that I recorded. It's about, again, $10 on Udemy, and I have that running here in the house running on XAMPP. And now what I want to do is to add this domain to that. So I'm going to use this application called Direct Connect, and I'm going to bring that over here. And if you take my course, you'll see about this particular piece of software as well as some others. And what I need to do, let's see, this actually has an error. Let's view the last result. Let's uncheck that. And let's unlock the account. And its operation was successful. All right, so that fixed the underlying root cause. Now let's go ahead and add a new one. So now what we want to do is we want to update web01 and dot. And let's move this off here. Let's take this domain host. So this is all there as well. All right, now I have all of this information available online. So I'm gonna have to switch over to my Google domains, which is where I've registered this. Again, if all of this doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. I've covered it in the other course. I do encourage you to go ahead and take that. And let's see if I can remember where to go. Probably the easiest way of getting there. Yep, manage my domains. Okay, so essentially what I need to do is add a synthetic DNS record to allow for dynamic IP, so this will actually work from the real world. And here's a synthetic record. We'll add a dynamic DNS. We'll add web01. Conflicts with the existing web01. Okay, I actually do have a web01 already. Well, let's go ahead and delete this. All right, let's add it. All right, edit. Okay, no, don't want to edit. Twirl this open. All right, so here's what I need. I need to get these credentials out of here to put into the other app. So let's put this in here, and guys, by the way, I am going to reset the credentials, so if you're thinking about taking them, go ahead. They're not going to work. And I need to put this password in here, and with any luck, okay, good, that's in. All right, so with that now being in, I have no IP address. I should be able to refresh this, and I should have a web address. Okay, let's see. My synthetic record for Web01 now has a public IP, and it's 66.134 it ends in. So if I do my IP in Google Chrome, 66.134. So that matches what's in here. So I do know that that's good. Now I need to jump over to the port forwarding, and I need to put 192.168.254.40, which is what the virtual machine is, and it's port number 10,000. So let's go back to the console, and it is 10,000. Yep, here's the port right here. So that's 10,000. Copy, 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 copy. Most routers, you don't have to do all that. You specify it once or maybe twice. All right, so now I have the port opened up. I have the domain name, or the A record, in this case a synthetic record, with my dynamic configuration going on here, and I should be able to do this. Now, guys, if you're doing this at a real host provider, all you need to do is go in and add a typical domain name, right? You just go into and add an A record, and you would put in, you know, Web01, and there's none of this hocus pocus, right? And you just put in the IP address to your server, and it's done because it's a static IP. You use normal DNS. It's because I'm doing this at the house and I want it to work moving forward. I don't want to have to pay for hosting, and that was the purpose of the course at hosting at home. And anyway, as a result of that, I don't have to do that with this configuration. So I should be able to grab this entire URL out. I'm going to select it and hit enter, which should put it on the clipboard, and it does. And with any luck, I'll get this error message. Now, notice that this has this error. Now let me go back into the console, or rather into the here, and it says you'll receive a security warning in your browser on your first visit. Okay, and this is what this is. Now I'm using Chrome. To get around this, just click Advanced and say go there anyway. It's telling you it's unsafe, but I know it's safe because it's my box. So I click on that, and now I get to the Webmin. So if I type in root, not root, and I put in demo, which is my password, I am now inside of Webmin, and this is great. Now the thing is, with a brand new fresh install of Virtualmin, is you need to run this post-installation wizard. And I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time, but I do see other tutorials online where they kind of just blow through this and don't do a great job of explaining it, and you're trying to learn, so I get that. And I'm going to try to give you as much information as I can. At the same time, I'm not going to try to draw it out. So first thing you do is click Next. Now, this is the preloading of Virtualmin libraries. Let's talk about minimum system requirements that I've experienced in the real world. I don't care what Virtualmin website says. I can tell you from a person with experience with this software using real websites in a production environment what you should have minimal and what you should have if you can afford it. What you should have minimum is a 2-core processor and 4 gigabytes of RAM. Assuming that you have that, then the answer to that, or the answer to this question, is yes. And run email lookup server, also yes. Again, apologize for the alarm. The next item that you need to look at or consider is for this virtual machine. I have 1 core that I have set up in VirtualBox, and I have, in addition to the 1 core, let's see, let me go over here to details. I've got, where is my processor core? It's probably staring at me right in the face, and for some reason I can't find it. But I'll go to Settings. Under System, Processor. Okay, here we go. 1 processor. So I have one core, and as far as memory goes on this machine, I'm only dealing with 2 gigabytes of RAM, which is what I had set up to be in the first place. And of course, that's listed right here under base memory. All right, so 2 gigs and 1 processor. With that being said, the proper answer for this then would be no, don't load it. Run email lookup server, also no. Okay, next. And of course, if you have more processors and more RAM, then obviously just use what I had recommended with the 2 processor, 4 gigabyte of RAM configuration. All right, the next one is enable virus scanning with Clam AV. The answer to this for a small underpowered machine is no. 2 processors and 4 gigabytes of RAM, this is going to be questionable at best, okay? So I would say this is safe to run if you're running maybe 1 or 2 domains and you get an average amount of mail. If you get an insane amount of mail, or you have a domain that's established with a lot of spam that comes in, be extremely careful, because it's going to just constantly run and peg up your processor and gobble up your RAM like there's no tomorrow. So the answer to this question is not so clean. Just know that it's a pig, and it will take up a huge chunk of your system resources. So I'm going to choose no, because I'm underpowered and I don't need it for this demo. But in a production environment with very, very little domains or a low traffic type of site, then you can choose yes. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to choose next here. All right, run Maria database server. The answer is to both of these yes. Leave it as is in any of the production environments. If you have a specific reason for needing PostgreSQL, then go ahead and change this to yes. I typically never use it. Most of the sites that I host are WordPress or just regular PHP sites. All right, we're going to choose next here, and this is the randomized password for the MySQL database. Please copy this down, put it in a vault, put it someplace aside. This is your MySQL password for, the root for the root user, okay? So I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to need it for this video. For the most part, I can tell you leaving this as it is just fine. Matter of fact, I do recommend leaving it like this in almost every instance, because MySQL is a pig, but it's also pretty good at understanding what needs to be done. So just leave the default settings and you should be just fine with this. Okay, and now it's asking for the primary name server. So what I'm going to do is change this out to the regular URL, okay? But there is a problem with this automatically. And the problem is that it's going to try to hit the server head on. And if it tries to get a response from the server, it's not going to pass, because my port forwarding is porting port 80 and 443 to my XAMPP installation. I'm going to need to quickly modify this to point it to the virtual machine on my particular instance, because I need to get a response from Virtualmin in order for this next check to pass, and it's not going to pass based on the way that I'm currently configured. And you're going to need to know your configuration exceptionally well, because this is where a lot of people start pulling their hair out, thinking they've done everything perfectly, they've set it up the way that they needed to, and apparently I was logged out when I tried to make that change, so it complained. I got to do it again. I got one more log entry to change. Come on, modem, hurry up. All right, here we go. Modify this last one right here. And with these changes now being made, as soon as it flashes back, I should be good to go with the wizard. Come on. Okay. So now this should pass the test. Let's click next. And it did pass. Okay. So if it didn't pass, I would have received an error. And if you get an error, then you need to look at how you're configured. Okay. So that being said, the next and towards the next final question is, you need to only store your hashed passwords. Now, this means that you need to make sure you're writing your stuff down. You're not going to be able to recover your password, but you know, I would err on the side of security rather than the side of convenience. So I'm going to strongly recommend only stored hash passwords. You can do whatever you want and whatever you're comfortable with because it's your server. Okay, next. Here we go. Let's see, Virtualmin can create a default server. I don't want to do anything default right now. I'm going to show you that in the next and final video piece of this long-winded video already, and that'll be the final piece. So I'll just choose next. And at that point, everything looks good. I'll choose next to finish it up. And now you need to run this recheck and refresh configuration. This is a final check to see if everything's working as expected, making sure you don't have any errors and that everything is well and good, and it'll reload and restart everything and you will be good to go. All right, so with that being said, I now have everything done. I can return to the virtual server list, and now I am at the default installation after the post configuration for Virtualmin. So a very quick whirlwind tour. Everything on the Webmin tab has to do with servers and services that is inside. In other words, think of this Webmin as your Linux GUI replacement. If you're going to use the desktop, this is where you would normally deal with it. So all of your servers, all of your services, everything is in here under the Webmin tab, okay? Including the system name, rebooting the server, all of that. It's all in the Webmin tab, okay? That's as much as I'm going into any of this. I'm going to create a full paid course if I have enough responses from this free video that I'm posting here on Udemy, and I'm also going to post this on YouTube. And if you guys are interested in seeing more about the Virtualmin Webmin configuration and setup after this is all, from this point forward, let me know, and I will create essentially a video course manual that will cover pretty much almost every facet or every area of this software for you. All right, and that being said, now we're going to come over to the Virtualmin side. This has to do with Plesk or a cPanel replacement. This is what Virtualmin is. It's for virtual servers. And again, in the paid course, I'll show you all about this, but really what I want to show you right now is how to create your first virtual server. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and pop into the domain name, which I'm going to do as web01 dot. And let's see here, web01 dot, what is it called? At homehosting.com. All right, now there's a reason and a method to my madness for this. It's because if you'll notice, this site is not secure. The SSL certificate is not secure. And so to get it secure, we need to assign an SSL. So what I typically do is I create my first site as the website for the name of the server itself. Now you don't have to put anything on it because there won't be anything on it per se if you don't design anything for it. But what this will allow you to do is it'll allow you to create an SSL certificate that you can then bind to the Virtualmin interface and you can use that. So I'm just going to leave this all like it is. I'm going to use demo as the administration password. And with that being said, let's see here, server configuration, all of this is good. We'll just change the custom name to demo. So we got demo and demo again. Under advanced options, all of this is good. Now here's where you do want to change, enable features. You want to tick the tick box that says set up SSL website 2. And now just hit create server. Now what this will do is it'll go out and let's see here. Failed to create virtual server. The specified administrator user already exists. Okay, so it doesn't like this. Let's change this to automatic. Let's leave the password at demo. Create server. Okay. Looks like it's going to create a user of web01 because I already have a user called demo in when we did the Debian 10 operating system install. Okay, so if you make that same mistake, just leave it at its default like I just showed you here at the end. And this is like watching paint dry, and it usually doesn't take too long, so I'm not going to pause the video. It's pretty reasonably quick. Now you will lose connection because it's trying to set everything up, and we essentially just set up the server with the same name as what we had here. So you will have to basically refresh all of this, and now you've got this error, but we should be able to bypass this one more time. And let's see here, I don't have permission to access the source, and the reason for that is because I didn't use the port number that I need to use. Okay, I'm still not secure, which is fine. All right, so I have everything up and running good. Now, as you can see, I have my first virtual server, which is Web 01. Now this is essentially where I have the website, and there's really nothing there right now. And what I need to do is come into the server configuration and drop down into SSL certificate, and then from here I'm going to go over to Let's Encrypt. Now, because I don't have my A records in DNS outside of this DNS, in other words, there's DNS services inside of here, but the DNS for at-home hosting is currently in the Google domains, and under these A records, I don't have them established. So if I try to go ahead and just leave the default like it is, it's going to come up with a bunch of errors, and I know for a fact the only one I have configured is this first one. So I'm only going to specify just this one domain, and then I'm going to request the certificate. I'm going to leave it at automatically renew every 2 months, so I don't have to remember to do it, and it said it was successful. So again, if you don't change this, guys, you're going to get an error unless you have all of those A records set up, and this isn't at your house. You're doing this, say, at a regular managed service provider. And I could go through and use the application that I showed you earlier and set each one of these up, and it would be fine, but in all honesty, I don't need it that complicated, and I don't need it to be functional in that regards. All right, so I have the SSL certificate created and it is installed. I should be able to jump out of here and just go into the root, and now all of a sudden, well, actually, I know from experience, if I just shut the web browser down and go back into it, Web 01, okay, here we go. This is now the front page. It says Web 01. I have a proper certificate. It is all working. And now I can get to the website, because you can't get to the website on the server because it's secured, that it only will allow the SSL type of connection. As you saw earlier, it was forbidden. If I remove the S, it gives you, or it gave an error. In any event, because everything wasn't properly set up and configured. You can add something to the HTA access file that'll redirect and force it into the SSL version of this. And in any event, for right now, what I want to do is get into the secured version of it so that we don't have any more of these configuration anomalies. Okay, so that looks good. Now I'll just go into that special port of 10,000 to get into the user login interface. Now here's what it looks like going in as the Web 01 demo password. Okay, so this is the, think of this as like the client or the customer, right? So they don't have access to everything at the server level. They still have a Webmin tab and they still have a Virtualmin tab, but it's in scope to just that domain name. They only have options that they should have that is scoped for them. Okay, this is like the server side configurations if they wanted to change PHP and things of that nature. The Virtualmin side of things, if you allow them to create multiple virtual servers, they can have them here. All of this is done, their service configuration, their SSL certificates, things of that nature. This is what you would give to your customer or your client if you were doing that sort of thing. Otherwise, if you're just using it internally, you can just simply log in and out with the default root username and password, and I would suggest only using this in a very limited fashion. You need to make sure that you adhere to best practices and security as best as you can, because if you don't, obviously you'll get hacked and there'll be all kinds of problems. And anyway, you'll know what to do when you come up with that, because what'll happen is you're going to have a very bad day. So take backups. Big time backups. I can't even say that enough. Okay, so we're going to log back in here with the demo username and password, and you get taken to this really nice control panel. So now I'm in here, you know, with God level, root level access, and I get everything that I need. Okay, so this is all of the basic configuration and setup, how to get your SSL going, how to get it logged in properly, how to install it properly, how to put Debian in, resolve any of the installation errors with that. So this is a nice, good, clean install, guys, and you should be really proud of yourself because you made it through over an hour-long free course that hopefully was beneficial to you. That is it for this video. Again, if you're interested in seeing a full-blown video tutorial from this point forward, let me know and I'll get started on creating that paid course on Udemy. That's it for now. My name is Dave. I am the owner of Dave's WordPress, and if you need any help with WordPress or virtual server hosting, please reach out to me. You can reach me at davidtsoden@gmail.com, and my phone number is 404-855-1795. In the event that you would like to hire me, please do not call me for technical support. I cannot help you for free. Okay, thank you very, very much, and that's it. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.